Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are talking about something that is kind of close to my heart because I find it to be disruptive, I find it to be stressful, and I find it to be unhelpful that within the fitness industry, within our little bodybuilding sector and our niche that is maybe even like evidence-based bodybuilding, there seems to be some camps that have evolved, and I don't think they're very productive. So that's something that we're going to be talking about today. First of all, I do want to touch on why do camps develop. We see this in so many areas of our life. We see this with like political camps.
We have a vote coming in. So we got every single Republican voted for us. Whoa.
But, you know, these sort of groups of individuals that relate to one another, and they maybe have some not so kind thoughts or feelings towards other groups that aren't within their particular camp. So people want to feel like they belong. That's one big reason that these sort of areas exist, and I think it's a huge part of just being a human. You want to feel like you belong to something, and so I can see why people are drawn to joining a group or a camp, and that belonging therefore provides them a sense of identity, and that sense of identity can give them a better self-esteem. It can also lead to just general better overall well-being when you feel like you don't belong. Yeah, you've probably heard this from someone before, like they just don't feel like they belong and they generally aren't that happy of an individual. But if you find a group that you feel like you belong to, like it suddenly feels really, really good. An example that's just coming to mind here is like Mean Girls. You have like the Mean Girls, they have their group and they belong.
You're wearing sweatpants. It's Monday.
So? So that's against the rules and you can't sit with us. Whatever. Those rules aren't real. They were real that day I wore a vest, because that vest was disgusting. You can't sit with us!
You have like other people outside of that and they like hate upon one another. And it's like, that's not like particularly healthy. That's like playground stuff, you know. You probably had it in your school days where there were groups that existed. I know I had that at my school. So it fosters a sense of camaraderie and solidarity within that group. Like you all have each other's back, and therefore you have security there too. Again, when you don't feel like you belong, there's no one that's surrounding you that gives you support in that sense as well. So I can definitely see that it reinforces people's sense of identity, purpose in life, and also gives them a sense of direction. They know where they're going, they know where the group is going, and all those things can be really, really great in many ways. Feeling like you belong is important, and having people who support you around you and kind of will back you up is important too. But this unfortunately can lead to some severe issues. So the thing I see probably most often is that it creates a us versus them mentality. I'm just going to throw some that are just coming to the top of my head within the fitness industry is like, I don't know, it might be the bros versus the PubMed warriors as an example, or like volume versus intensity, or clean eaters versus flexible dieters, or even kind of people who are more like haze, so health at any size versus like, I don't know, bodybuilders, physique competitors, that sort of thing, you know, like where they are kind of almost pit against one another, and it can lead to this unnecessarily conflict and marginalization of groups. The other unfortunate thing that it can do is that it encourages groupthink, which is basically it suppresses different opinions to what you may have, and you therefore may fail to consider other options or ideas, which I think can be particularly dangerous. It also creates and encourages an echo chamber, so everyone surrounding you is thinking the same thoughts and feelings, and that can lead to confirmation bias, where you selectively interpret information to support your pre-existing thoughts already. And because you're already in this group, who everyone supports one another, you'll pick out people who support your idea and ignore the other ones that don't. This is also dangerous because I sometimes see the idea of like removing people from your life who don't support you. And you have to be careful to not just remove people who have different ideas to you. I think it's important to challenge yourself. And I've certainly done it with individuals where I will continue to follow them because while some of their content I even find triggering because it's maybe counter to my group, but I want to continue to consume that content because those challenges are exactly what I need to make sure that I don't become dogmatic and fall for some of the biases that you can do when you are within a group. So what that can end up doing is leading to flawed decision making and also have a lack of creativity, and you becoming resistant to change, and that can hinder progress. None of these things are good. And you can think about that again in the broader like everyday life, but even just with your physique goals. If everyone surrounding you is like, yeah, thumbs up, that's exactly what you should be doing, you have no reason to think you should change, even if maybe there is a reason for you to. I can have some like personal examples of this. When I first got into like bodybuilding per se, the only exposures I really had to it were from people at my gym, which there was not much chat going on, magazines, and then a forum that I was part of. And all of those were kind of confirming my same thoughts in terms of like, and I was new to this, so I was very easily convinced by what other people were saying because they had more knowledge than me. So then I would just consume this content and know this is the way. So like, as Mando would say, you know, from Mandalorian,
this is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
This is the way. So this is the way for me was like, okay, so train muscle groups once a week, all out failure, try and progress in weight every single week. And then it was like clean eating. So have a meal plan, stick to that meal plan. You can't have foods off that. Otherwise that's going to lead to unwanted and unnecessary fat gain. It's unhealthy. It's not good for you. And that was like my very like rudimentary baseline thinking. And so when I started getting exposed to some of the work from Alan Aragon and Lyle McDonald I was on bodybuilding.com, I started reviewing other forums. So I was in like my group think at my forum where everyone was like thinking the same. And I started getting exposed to this other stuff. I was like, oh, that's uncomfortable. That's not nice. But hey, it was interesting and it made sense. And this is where I started to find like the science behind things and like the reasons behind things. And it was like very enticing to me. I really enjoyed it. And that started really opening my mind. And I could have been dogmatic and been like, no, I'm going to hold myself to the group I'm in and not explore other options. Thankfully, I didn't feel particularly like chained to a particular group at that time. Then I started to discover flexible dieting. I started to discover a little bit of periodization, fatigue management, and these sort of things. And that really, really helped me move forward. And I continue in my kind of bodybuilding journey to try and be as open-minded as possible, to avoid groupthink, to allow voices and opinions that differ to my own into my mind so that I can not limit myself. Because ultimately, and this really brings me to my point, ultimately, all of us, wherever we are in like bodybuilding and fitness, we're all after the same thing. We all want more muscle. We all want to like lose fat. We all want to be our healthiest self. We all have the same objective, to be our best, most muscular self, basically, which should harmonize everyone, bring us together, because each and every individual is like, I want to do my best to bring about the best result possible for me. It's just that there are seemingly either many roads to Rome, or rather, there are many roads to Rome. Whether or not some are more efficient or like quote unquote better is up to argument and debate. And I think rather than trying to be like, hey, I'm going to double down into my group and I'm going to hate against others, which forces other people to double down into their group and hate against them, and it just creates these camps. I don't think that's wholly productive. I try and do my best to stay out of those. Some of you may think I'm in a particular camp. I try to avoid that completely. I always try and learn from everyone. I think there's a lot of value to that. Not just taking in anything for any reason and being really like just easy to convince. Like, have your own thoughts about things. Same with maybe the group that you most identify with. Think about the gurus or the leaders or the thought experts in that group, and don't just trust them blindly. I've certainly done that in the past. Bring your own experiences, client experiences, friends' experiences, other anecdotes, things you know to the table, and other people and educators you've learned from, and keep up to date with things too, because not everyone is all the time as well. There's many kind of thought leaders out there that maybe don't even stay adrift of the science, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. They're learning from their own experiences with themselves and their clients and things, and they can bring something to the table too. And this is why I think, like, when people think evidence-based, they really like often pigeonhole it to, hey, PubMed, but it's like, no, that's just one part of it. There's also your experience, client's experience, like expert opinion, like anecdotes. Yeah, there's weaker and better forms of evidence with less bias, of course, but they complement one another. And when I think about like bro science, that was the like science before the science looked at what the bros were doing and then either gave it a thumbs up or a thumbs down or like, I'm not sure yet. and it leads the science. And so they can actually be ahead of the science sometimes, but sometimes they're ahead in a negative or less productive way. And then the science kind of gives us a better idea of where is the right way to start looking. So I think it's just a reminder for you guys and for me, avoid trying to like strictly identify with a camp. Don't be closed-minded to other opinions. Avoid like an us versus them mentality. Avoid groupthink and echo chambers, and avoid closing yourself off from other opinions, and try and stay open-minded. And that's going to lead to the best creativity, the best results for you, the best outcomes, and you can continue to learn, develop, and adapt, and find your way through this whole thing. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say about it. The only other thought I have is quite often people really like pigeonhole themselves onto one thing. That might be, as an example, like a meal plan. Hey, meal plans work best for me in prep. Meal plans are the way to go. Off season, you should be sticking to a meal plan. This has led to the best results for me, my clients, all that. It's like, that might be the best tool for you, your clients, and probably clients going to you know that you like meal plans. They go to you because they know meal plans work for them, maybe. But that could be the complete opposite approach for someone who's like, hey, I need much more flexibility. Meal plans don't work for me. I can't like stick to those religiously. I need more like flexibility, but some structure that a meal plan provides can like also help. And I think it is just like, there's many options on here. People who go strictly to these extremes of this is the way to do it. It's like, actually, there's like many tools within here. Sometimes those tools are appropriate for you at different times and for different people. And it's the same with, I don't know, failure and leaving some reps in reserve. It's like, hey, maybe there's like appropriate times for both or different individuals, and ultimately we're all after the same thing, and to drop tools is a bad idea. That's something I definitely agree with, is to just completely be like, no, this is the tool, this is the only one to use, and that throw everything else away. That doesn't make sense, especially when those other tools have no reason to throw them away, you know? So anyway, roundabout way, avoid trying to identify with a particular camp, and hopefully we can all come in harmony together. And this video has maybe made some people think about their own thoughts and opinions, and maybe you guys agree with me. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear that. As ever, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. If you enjoyed this vlog, let me know. If there's anything you'd like to see in future, let me know that too. And I guess I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers. Take care.